It is the Cam Show. It is Rogue Media Sports Network. Happy Wednesday to you. Do we still call that Hump Day, Zach? Do we still do that? Do the kids still do that?
I don't know if the kids still do it. I know people who still do it, so I guess it's okay.
You yourself are not a kid, so
I'm not. Well, and I don't use it. But again, as you said, I'm not a kid. So.
I'm at the age where now it's like I need to question if my friend, like, we're kind of aging out in terms of my friends. They're not really knowing the lingo anymore.
Yeah, no.
My girlfriend does. She works in a middle school, so.
Oh, then she's the
she
one
might know too much, actually.
Ooh, like
in terms of like
she's too hip.
Slang, yeah, very much too hip.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too hip is not something that's used anymore either.
Too hip to quit, something like that. Anyway, we're starting today's show. We are going to talk later about Chaim Bloom and why Red Sox fans should really be lining up to kiss his ass, as once again Chaim Bloom pays off a year after he's fired. But we got to start with this big ESPN story that came out this morning. Don Van Natta, not someone I've heard of. Nothing against him. Maybe I don't follow ESPN enough, but I just expect a kind of a bombshell like this to have. I don't know. I don't want to diss Don Van Natta's career compared to mine, but I've never heard of this guy. He drops this story this morning. Winners write history inside Robert Kraft's 12-year Hall of Fame quest, and it's clearly well researched and has a lot of good sources on here. It's a long story. If you wanted to use the Spotify version of it and hear it out loud, it's about a half hour. So it takes a long time to get there, but it's all about exactly what the headline says. Robert Kraft trying to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in what has now become more or less a propaganda tour after the Patriots stopped winning Super Bowls to get their owner into the Hall of Fame. There's two big takeaways from me in this story. The first, what I will go over, is Robert Kraft deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. There is no question Robert Kraft deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The fact that there are 16 owners in NFL history that are in Canton and one of them is not Robert Kraft, that's crazy. How do you have 16 owners in the Hall of Fame and none of them are Robert Kraft? I can't get over that. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has spearheaded the greatest dynasty in the history of American sports. When you take the context of everything, the era that it was in, the league it was in, and for a team to thoroughly dominate it for that long, it's not supposed to happen. Not supposed to happen. Like, as great as the Chiefs have been, as great a dynasty as the Chiefs have had the last handful of years here, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years? They're halfway to the trophy count of the Patriots, and they're a quarter of the way for the run of dominance. The Patriots did it for 20 years. I mean, in reality, 19 seasons they did that. And this guy was the start of it all. I mean, the Patriots were literally going to move. They were going to move to St. Louis. And Robert Kraft came in, bought the team, way overpaid. Everyone thought at the time it was the highest bill for a North American professional sports franchise at the time. And it was for a middling team, played in the middle of nowhere, had no stars at that point. They eventually get Bledsoe, they get Parcells, but they have like no history. They're being run out of town, and he turns them into the greatest dynasty in NFL history. He should have already been in the Hall of Fame. Like, what are we talking about, man? And I've seen some of the detractors. Some of the detractors would say, well, you got 2 major scandals and a rub and tug situation with Robert Kraft. There's an image thing there. Okay, well, to be honest, I'd argue that neither of those scandals have anything to do with Robert Kraft, and one of them is a bona fide conspiracy theory with Deflategate. Like, anyone that's a reasonable adult with a brain realized that was bullshit almost as soon as it happened. Anyone who has a basic understanding of science and weather understands that is complete bullshit. Spygate, don't think that has anything to do with the owner, really. I think that was pretty well established as a head coach problem. And again, put on my Patriots conspiracy theory hat if you want, but it's not as big a deal as most people make it out to be. And of course, this flashy headline of Robert Kraft involved in a sex slavery ring turned out to be completely false. He got a happy ending at a massage parlor. I think it's not as bad as people think. I think they're two consenting adults because it's not a sex ring anyway. Sex trafficking ring, which they tried to throw him in there with that headline, and it just turned out to be false. So even if you want to say those are really bad things, okay, fine. Eddie DeBartolo's in the Hall of Fame. He was caught in an extortion case. He had to sell his team because he was caught up in an extortion case with the governor of Louisiana. Oh, and by the way, Eddie DeBartolo also had sexual assault claims, had to settle out of court. A little worse than a rub and tug, if you ask me. So there's not a character thing you can throw at and say Bob Kraft should not be in because of X, Y, and Z off the field. Doesn't matter. It does not hold up to these other owners who are in the Hall of Fame. And speaking of which, if we're looking at the owners that are in the Hall of Fame, there is only one who has 6 Super Bowls. Nobody has more than Robert Kraft. And only the Rooney family has 6. That's Dan Rooney, who's enshrined, by the way. Others would include DeBartolo, like I mentioned, Ralph Wilson of the Bills. What did he ever win? Went to the Super Bowl a couple times. Pat Bowlen of the Broncos had a nice little run. The other one is Jerry Jones. The other one that I want to highlight, I should say, is Jerry Jones. And that's someone Robert Kraft wanted to highlight as well. Because in the story, Van Nada's got a source with a quote from Robert Kraft that said after Jerry Jones got in 2017, he hadn't made an NFC Championship game in 2 decades at that point. How does that get you in the Hall of Fame? Jerry Jones had a nice little run at the beginning of things. 3 Super Bowls out of 4. There's only like 3 teams in NFL history that can say that. One of the other owners whose teams did that is not in the Hall of Fame. That's Robert Kraft. But like seriously, if we're comparing the resumes of Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft, and you look at those down the breadth of that list, and you say one of these guys is a Hall of Fame, guess who it is? No one's going to guess Jerry Jones. Nobody. Again, we're talking almost 30 years now since he's had a team even make the conference championship game. Robert Kraft, in that time, by the way, made 8 straight AFC championship games. And in that time that Jerry Jones has not made the NFC championship, the Patriots won 6 Super Bowls. How do you then put Jerry in the Hall of Fame? Maybe that guy with the Commanders is right, because Jerry Jones is the guy who actually runs this league. And they play it off as friends, and I'm sure they are, friendly in a very professional sense in terms of the way the league goes. But these guys fucking hate each other. And you know what was a good example was Deflategate. Because Jerry Jones, that whole time, is praising how good a job his little puppet, Roger Goodell, is at running this league. And Bob Kraft was the only one almost going out on a limb saying, hey, this guy's a fucking bozo. And he's going to ruin your team next. It's like that old adage, they came for the gypsies and I wasn't a gypsy. And then it comes down to, a couple years after Deflategate, all of a sudden, Jerry Jones' star running back, Zeke Elliott, is suspended for a quarter of the season. Boy, does that sound familiar. 4 games out of 16. And he's suspended off unsubstantiated claims. Boy, does that sound familiar. So meanwhile, Kraft's probably laughing, just sitting back laughing, saying, you wouldn't stand up for me, and now they came after you with the same thing. I wouldn't piss on you to put out the fire around you. These guys do not like each other, and I'm sure it was big time salt in the wound, as we heard in this story, that Jerry Jones gets in the Hall of Fame over Robert Kraft. Like, nobody that's an NFL fan believes Jerry Jones is a better owner than Robert Kraft. Nobody. Jerry Jones takes over the Cowboys in a tough time in their history, to be fair. A tough time. They were pretty bad towards the end of the 80s. He fires Tom Landry. It's a big, big deal. And within a few years, they're winning Super Bowls again. The Patriots were in a bad situation too. Okay? Robert Kraft didn't have to fire a legendary coach because they never had a legendary coach. They didn't have Super Bowl trophies or banners in their arena. They didn't have that. They were around the same amount of time as the Cowboys with 1/100th of the tradition. Boo-hoo, Jerry had to go fire Tom Landry. Robert Kraft had to keep the team in the city it was in and had no history. A stadium that was a complete fucking dump. There's no hole in the roof for God to watch the games. Okay? There's no America's team branded on the Patriots. And all he does is take them over and make them a better franchise than the Cowboys ever were. It's comical, man, that Jerry Jones is in there, who hasn't done shit for 30 years. In fact, you ask any Cowboys fan around here where I am in Texas, and they'll tell you he's a detriment to the team. Robert Kraft never made himself the GM. He knows that's not his thing. Jerry Jones is not his thing either, but here we are, 30 years into him being the GM. He is literally working against his team. And Robert Kraft brought in the best people possible and made them into a winner. If you don't want to have owners in the Hall of Fame at all, I can understand that. I don't think it's a great thing, but they are in, and 16 of them are in, and none of them are Robert Kraft. By the way, Zach, he's going to get in this year. They're going to do that voting in a couple weeks. He's going to get in.
You're calling it?
Yeah. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, it is ridiculous, and they changed the rules now with the contributors thing,
Mm-hmm.
so they're not. Owners aren't going up against coaches and players, essentially.
Okay, then yeah.
And I think it was a little different. Like I think they'd be going up against coaches. So it's contributors to the game. That's how they got a referee in the Hall of Fame. They got a fucking referee in the Hall of Fame before. No, I don't think so. Before Robert Kraft. Like that's just ridiculous, man. That's ridiculous. So that's the first part. And the most important part of this article is that Robert Kraft should be in the Hall of Fame. All Jerry Jones has done in 30 years is make the Cowboys very valuable. Congrats, you built the stadium. Awesome. Round of applause for Jerry. Let's get him a bust. They're at the top of the Forbes list every year, most valuable franchises. By the way, you don't have to go deep down into that list to find the New England Patriots. Even this year, when they stink. Again, we are talking about a team that was on the move. They were leaving town. They had no history, no tradition, the worst stadium. Nobody wanted to go there as a fan or as a player or as a coach. They were a laughingstock. Bob Kraft put them in the top 10 of that Forbes list every year and won 6 Super Bowls. All Jerry Jones did after 96 is get him to the top of that Forbes list. Congrats, baby. Where did it get you? Barely got you out of Bob Kraft's shadow. And you will not live long enough, Jerry. You will never touch 6 Super Bowls. No chance. You won't even sniff Bob Kraft's accomplishments. So he's going to get in this year. The other important part of this article is the campaign. The propaganda campaign, as I'm calling it. And anybody who's followed the Patriots the last few years, we saw this. We didn't need a story to see this. Bob Kraft has clearly been lobbying to get into the Hall of Fame at least the last 4 or 5 years. And it has been, since the Brady Belichick departure, it has been all these things in media that you see hyping up the Patriots. In fact, I've got one behind me here. I had one behind me. Yeah, we got one. This book, which was almost certainly given editorial review by someone in the Kraft group. This is a 600-page blowjob on what Bob Kraft built with the Patriots. The first quarter of it is all about Bob Kraft and his strategy towards buying the team and getting the ship in the right direction. He deserves that. It's all true. But if you don't believe Bob Kraft had to sign off for this book for Jeff Benedict to write it, you're crazy. It doesn't stop there either. I had a lot of people telling me how great the 10-part docu-series The Dynasty was on Apple TV. I couldn't make it halfway through. Thought it was bullshit, man. It was an absolute hit job on anyone that wasn't Brady and Kraft, mainly Belichick. It was, and by the way, the Krafts and the Patriots have denied any involvement in any kind of editorial decisions or producer decisions. They have denied any kind of involvement with this docuseries. I'm calling bullshit there. If you watch it, it's pretty obvious. This is absolutely a pro-Kraft angle. And again, Kraft deserves positivity, but it almost took on an anti-Belichick slander, anti-Parcells slander. And it was just all about how great Bob Kraft and Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe were. That's essentially what it becomes. In fact, I thought Parcells and Belichick got duped into interviewing for that docuseries. So here we are, and this is where I think Patriots fans could be upset, because the team has been in transition at best. They've been a dumpster fire at worst the last 4 years. And in that time, Bob Kraft has been pretty concerned about getting in the Hall of Fame and getting that image out there, reminding everyone how great the dynasty was and not how good his football team is right now. And, you know, it's been kind of trying to distance himself from Belichick the last few years. It's been, oh, well, Bill did this wrong. And in fact, in this docuseries, Kraft calls Belichick a sap. That's almost where I gave up. You're a total sap for the Spygate thing. I'm like, are you kidding, man? Like, you clearly recorded this before the end of the season. Did you know you were going to fire Belichick so you could throw him under the bus like this? Like this, to me, I thought that was bullshit. And clearly there is a rift between those two, Kraft and Belichick. They won't admit it. Certainly Kraft won't, but there's clearly a rift there. And so as a Patriots fan, I'm looking at, a team that didn't build enough in the last few years in order to put their number 3 overall pick quarterback out there week 1. They did an exhaustive coaching search only to get a guy who played for the Patriots, exclusively played for the Patriots, and who only coached for the Patriots. And so we're trying to run Bill out of this building, but let's get one of Bill's disciples in here to coach the team. To me, that's lazy. That's a guy who wants to, make docuseries and write books about getting into the Hall of Fame and is not worried about how his football team is going to look taking the field in 2024 or 2023 or 2022. This is a guy 2 years ago who said the playoffs are the expectation. Anything less than the playoffs is a failure. To now saying, I just hope we get better. And I really like the way our coaching staff's coming along. That's a guy who cares about the Hall of Fame. He's got 6 Super Bowl rings. There's probably not an owner who's going to get there again. And he's like, I'm solidifying my legacy here, and I don't want anybody to forget what my legacy is. And then when I get in the Hall of Fame, maybe then we can start worrying about the next one. I think that's what I'm taking out of this. By the way, Don Van Natta, oh, God. It starts right off the bat with this one, Zach. He opens this. This is the lead of the story. Robert Kraft has an $11 billion empire and 6 Super Bowl rings. 5, if you count the one Vladimir Putin stuffed in his pocket during a 2005 meeting in Russia. It's like, oh my God. Like, just give me a break, dude. Like that. That's a true story, allegedly. Bob Kraft has told that story, but he wanted to put Vladimir Putin in there for a sentence.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to have, this guy's pretty great, but he visited Vladimir Putin 20 years ago.
And because that's a brush, you put, him next to anybody that's gonna, yeah.
Like, that's so bullshit. Yeah, that's exactly, they just want Vladimir Putin's name in there because it's somehow, it's loosely connected to Robert Kraft for that one meeting. Like, I almost gave up after that, but I was like, you know what? This is going to be good. This is going to be good. We'll find out what it is. Stacey James, the Patriots PR chief, said it's utterly ridiculous to say the book and docu-series are part of an effort to win Kraft's induction to the Hall. It's clear from the inquiries presented in this line of questioning for this story that there's an agenda being pushed regarding the portrayal of Robert Kraft in the Pro Football Hall of Fame process. I don't mind that. That shows some balls from the Patriots side. I don't think it's true, but hey, I don't mind being on the offensive if you're the Patriots PR staff, and Stacey James has been used to doing that. Robert Kraft has been used to doing that before. But yeah, I'm not buying that the fact that they're not part of this at all. Because by the way, and it also mentions in the story, Kraft does own the film and television rights to this book, The Dynasty. So that means if the book could be turned into a film, it could only be done with Kraft's permission. Love that. Love that. And according to emails, documents, and sources, Kraft owns the docu-series, licensed it to Apple, and sought editorial control. I believe that. I absolutely believe that. And again, if you watch this thing, you'd be like, well, if anyone with the Patriots has a say here, it's Robert Kraft. So, so two big takeaways, again, to kind of recap this. Bob Kraft absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame. If you're going to include owners and fucking referees, then Bob Kraft should absolutely be in there. But the second thing is, I am a little perturbed as a Patriots fan that it seems there's been a campaign the last 3 or 4 years to build up Robert Kraft more than anyone else in the franchise, and he should be recognized among the best. Oh, but all the while this is happening, while we're telling you how great it used to be, the team on the field sucks right now, and we're in a complete what do the Catholics call it? Limbo. Complete limbo as to what this franchise is going to be, and it might never be good again. Probably will at some point. Not Dynasty good, but probably be good again. But that does perturb me as a Patriots fan who is living and dying with whatever's going on the field every Sunday. And I've got an owner who's saying, look how great it used to be. I should be in the Hall of Fame now. But yeah, he should be in over Jerry Jones. I mean, that goes without saying.
We are Rogue Media Sports.